Hey everybody, awesome news. You may have heard that HBO is developing a Watchmen TV series, so I'll try to explain what's going on, when we might see footage, and how it'll treat the comic book story. Westworld is a good map marker for this. Westworld TV show from the Westworld movie. Because this is DC Comics, I'm going to go ahead and do a new round of the Flash Ring giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber, leave a comment on this video. So if you didn't know, Watchmen is now part of DC Comics. And Geoff Johns is very literally crossing over the Watchmen characters with the DC Comics canon using the Rebirth series. That's culminating in the Doomsday Clock series in November when the Justice League movie is getting ready to drop. So that's why this symbol here, the smiley face with the blood on it, looks like it's counting up like the Doomsday Clock. That idea is actually taken directly from the Watchmen comic book. So you've either seen the movie or you've read the comic book. Now they're turning it into an HBO series. They tried to do it a couple years ago. You might have heard around 2014, Zack Snyder was trying to adapt a version of his movie for HBO. It didn't end up working out. He left that project. So even the new Watchmen series might feel a lot like the movie. I think it'll take more from the comic book just because it'll have 10 episodes, 8 to 10 episodes a season to deal with plot. They'll probably try to get at least 5 seasons out of it. It's not supposed to be a mini-series, so they can just spend more time with each of the characters. They can do bigger Minutemen flashback. Because if you ever watched the Watchmen Ultimate Cut movie, it's really long, but they still cut a lot of stuff out of the comic book. They haven't said whether or not it's going to pick up where the movie picks up in the comic book with the death of the comedian, and then you sort of flash back, you learn their story as Rorschach pieces together the mystery of Ozymandias and why it is he's doing what he's doing.
So, Rorschach thinks someone's hunting the Watchmen, huh?
You think it's possible?
So just careful for spoilers if you haven't seen Watchmen. I'll explain a little bit of the story. But during the mid-'80s, Alan Moore had this idea that people had started to give up personal responsibility to their governments. Like in America, it was the Reagan era. In the UK, it was Margaret Thatcher era. But he felt like people had turned these governmental figures into heroes, like comic book heroes. And the attitude was, they'll take care of me. They have everything in hand. Don't worry, there's nothing to fear. So he wrote this story, Who Watches the Watchmen? Who watches out for the heroes that are watching out for us? And it became this big grand deconstruction of the idea of superheroes. So the main plot is all about Ozymandias, an OG Watchman, who comes to the realization, because that's part of his ability, he's just incredibly smart. He comes to the realization that if humanity is going to survive, they need to take back control of their own destinies and start taking care of themselves and not turning over that responsibility to heroes. So he goes about killing all of the Watchmen. Say, if I kill them and I turn the populace against these heroes, then they'll start to realize that they need to save themselves. But Rorschach starts piecing together this murder mystery, and he tries to warn everyone. He has this big journal that he turns over to a right-wing newspaper. Part of the reason why HBO probably had trouble adapting this into a series before is because it's very pessimistic. Superheroes are very popular right now. Look at the Marvel movies. They have the complete opposite philosophical view from Alan Moore's view of superheroes. Superheroes are awesome, they're fun, they're hopeful, they're inspirational. They've even taken that turn in the DC Comics movies with characters like Wonder Woman.
She's my,
Diana, Princess of the
Prince, Diana Prince.
So the ideas are just completely counter to what a Watchmen series would be like. So it's very different, but you understand why HBO is the place for this. It can be every bit as hardcore as the comic, and if they really wanted to, they could do a rehash of the comic book. The end point would obviously be the end point of the comic book, where Ozymandias blows up Manhattan, blames Dr. Manhattan, so that he leaves the Earth, and you get the idea that humanity might save itself. But then there's a big twist with Rorschach's journal, implying that people will learn about what Ozymandias did, and they'll look to heroes again to save them, just starting the cycle over again. There's a lot that's been said about Zack Snyder's treatment of the property. He did a very comic book faithful version of the movie, and even though it's a great movie, I think that at the time, it wasn't received as well as people expected, because the tone is so dark and it's so pessimistic about the idea of superheroes. But I think a lot of people went into the movie expecting a regular superhero movie without realizing what the Watchmen story is all about. It's all about the idea that superheroes are ultimately bad for humanity. It's actually a very Lex Luthor concept. So even if you don't know Watchmen, you know Superman, you know his relationship with Lex Luthor. The reason that Lex Luthor hates Superman is a very Watchmen twist. He thinks that everybody looks to Superman to save them, and they stop thinking about saving themselves. He wants humanity to pull itself up by its own bootstraps. He thinks of himself as the ultimate humanist, and Superman is an alien false messiah that's come to Earth, and people are now worshiping. And because of that, he thinks that it's completely halted the evolution of the human race, which I think is a very pessimistic view, and I think that he's wrong. I think people are inspired by Superman. It's just that Lex Luthor is a very myopic vision of the situation. So it's a bit more cartoonish, but Alan Moore tried to do a very real-world version of this. Like, he tried to make it feel as real as possible. That's why everyone's powers work the way they work. Dr. Manhattan is really the only actual superhero in it. Everyone else is just a normal person who takes up a mantle, has a specific set of skills. But if you haven't started reading DC Rebirth yet, I would recommend that you start. It's all about the idea of the Watchmen versus the Justice League. So Dr. Manhattan is blamed for all this pessimistic stuff that's been happening in the DC universe, and Superman is going to fight him in November. But when they say fight him, really what I think is going to happen is that he's going to remind Dr. Manhattan of his humanity. Because that's the whole idea. Superman is an alien from another planet, but he's the ultimate representation of human potential and the idealism of humanity. Dr. Manhattan is an actual human who was turned into a god and completely lost his humanity. So it's all about these competing philosophies, and I think it'll culminate in Superman reminding Dr. Manhattan that he still has a soul, even though he's this godlike figure with ultimate power. He's basically the most powerful person in the DC universe now. But let me know what you guys think about this. If everything goes well with the series development, HBO might drop a teaser at Comic-Con next summer for like a 2019 premiere, but I don't think that we're going to see the series before then. So when you're thinking about them doing the series, think about the way they turned a 2-hour Westworld movie into a Westworld TV show. They might do the same thing with the Watchmen series, because Westworld turned out to be great, and we are actually getting Westworld Season 2 next year. So of course I'll do videos for the series when it gets here, but leave all your requests for bonus videos in the comments. There's a bunch of Spider-Man that they announced today. There's also more Game of Thrones that I'll be posting, so while you wait for everything, you can click here to rewatch the Game of Thrones trailer, and you can click here for brand new Flash. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. I'll see you guys tonight.